I had successful salons myself for 14 years, and like every business, they had their ups and downs, but definitely far more good times than bad. The reality is that most businesses don't last 14 years. So when you meet the owners of businesses that have survived and continue to grow and constantly reinvent for 56 years, you know that there are some valuable lessons for the rest of us. My guests on today's podcast are Jason and Joshua Miller, whose parents, Janet and Charlie Miller, started the Charlie Miller salons in Edinburgh, Scotland, 56 years ago. And those salons continue to flourish and reinvent to this day. In today's podcast, we'll discuss the key to business longevity, creating staff loyalty, embracing change, and the importance of giving back. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Joshua and Jason Miller.
Hi Anthony. Great to see you.
Oh, great to see you. Thank you so much for making the time to do this. I know you're very busy. I know you've just opened up another salon. And so, putting some time aside to talk to me today is very much appreciated. And I know that you've got a lot to offer for our audience. So I'm really excited about, getting to know the answers to some things I want to put to you myself. So let's just start off by getting you to introduce yourself. I get all my guests to do this. So just give us sort of a 2-minute overview of who is Jason and who is Joshua Miller. Give us your sort of 2-minute backstory.
Okay, so Jason Miller, son of Charlie Miller and Janet Miller, brother of Josh Miller, married to India Miller, my wife, who's also a very eloquent hairdresser and a wonderful mother, got 2 kids. We've got our 56-year-old business now in Edinburgh, very much a family affair. Travelled the world, doing shows for Redken and L'Oreal since I was 19. I'm now 56. And with my family and my wife, I always knew from a very young age wanted to be a hairdresser, watching my father, and knew I wanted to travel the world at a very young age. And I knew that I wanted to meet somebody that I was going to do it with. And that did happen. So yeah, it's been a really fruitful career. It's still going. And we're looking at how's this going to look in the next 50 years, even when we're not here.
Wow.
We're thinking we would like it. That would be the dream, for it to continue or evolve, keep evolving.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll dig into that. So over to you, Joshua.
Yeah, I'm Josh Miller, and I'm not a hairdresser. And I'm the younger brother, and I grew up in the industry like Jason, but I realized I did not want to be a hairdresser, but I loved everything that I was around. I grew up going to Salon International, hair shows, and lots of everything else. And but I was always attracted to the words business and management without really knowing what they meant. And I kind of fell into the business at a very, very soon after school. And I remember Mum saying, well, why don't you come and learn to be a manager? Not that we even had managers then. And we used to have one salon at the time. And over the years, I've grown to learn a lot about a lot of things. And so I look after the business end of things, although we work very closely together in running the business, but the administration of everything that we have. And with our 5 salons, we have normally between 110, 120 people all in, from mum and dad to the Saturday juniors, the 40 apprentices and the receptionists and the office team. And it's a great effort, and that keeps us going.
Definitely. Well, there's a lot of stuff there to talk about. One thing I wanted to ask you, I was reading something, and one of you is a budding painter. Which one is that?
Me, Jason.
Jason, you're the painter. Yes. Right. Okay. Yeah. Good. I saw something on your website about you being a painter, and I think that is it's a fantastic thing. It's another outlet, isn't it? The canvas doesn't talk back to you in the same way as a client, but it's a creative outlet. So yeah, good on you.
Got a lot of similarities to hairdressing and gardening and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah,
but I've just got a passion for it. I love it. Yeah. And it's all about interiors as well. It's about images, and it's I like it. I would say I call my art, it's moods for spaces.
Fantastic. I'd love to see some of it someday. Now, your dad and your mum, they started the business, Charlie Miller, 56 years ago. I didn't realize it was 56. I thought it was sort of nearer to 50. Okay, and that's did you say that's how old you are as well, Jason?
Yeah.
So you were born the day the business or the time the business opened.
Around that time.
Right. Okay. I didn't realize you were that old. You don't look that old, if I can say so. So yeah.
You can't see me on a podcast, so don't worry.
Exactly. Okay, so is your dad? I mean, you know, he was or is a world famous hairdresser, as you've just said. You've travelled the world. You've done a lot of stuff out there over these years. Is he still involved? Are they both still involved in the business at any level? I mean, if they've got to obviously be in their mid 70s, late 70s, or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, they're not involved anymore. And they both had a gradual. Well, Mum's was a bit quicker coming out of the business, but I suppose in a certain way, always still involved.
Yeah,
I kind of took Mum's jobs away as the business grew and we had more systems and more processes. And Mum always looked after the business side of things from the beginning. And so my journey was that kind of replaced her role. And then Dad, we don't have an exact date on it, but it's probably about 12 years ago, 13 years ago. He said to us one day, he said, "You two know the answers better than I do. So why don't you get on with it? And I'll start stepping aside." And that was quite scary, actually. We didn't tell anyone for 3 months because it was just like the responsibility. You had to get our head around it. And particularly because, and this was a really important lesson he taught us a long time ago. He says, there's Charlie Miller, the person, and there's Charlie Miller, the brand. And they're two very different things. Yeah. And we were very, very fortunate as a family and a family business that he had that insight as the founder, that just because it has his name above the door doesn't mean it's always in his control or image. And well, you know, we own the business equally, but as a family, we've always worked really well together. And so when he stepped back, even then, it was very gradual. We often use the word organic. Yeah. Okay. Things happen organically. You have plans, but a lot of things happen in an organic way, and this was one of them. It was a very gradual, and over the years it was less and less.
Are they still? I'm sure they are interested in the day. You know, not the day to day, but they're interested in hearing about the business and how it's going, and you know, the new projects you've got and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, they definitely are. Unfortunately, these days our dad's got early stages of Alzheimer's. Yeah, as well. So he's still very, very excited about it though. Like he came to the new salon opening, and you know he still has the appreciation, and he still has the hairdresser's eye. Yeah, he can still check out a haircut in a way that, you know, it's like once they're always there. And so it's definitely, they've both got a deep appreciation for the industry and everybody in it as well, because it's been part of all of our lives, and we've met so many amazing people in the industry, hairdressers and business people that you've known for such a long time. It's an amazing industry to be a part of from that point of view. You know, there's a lot of care in the industry. Yeah, and I think we're really fortunate in that. So, you know,
what's the key to making? I mean, you know, a lot of people have businesses that are successful for a while. You know, 5 years, 10 years. What is the key to having a successful business for 56 years, a family business as well? Like, what are the ingredients that make that possible? Because it's not like you're still going. Like you're still going up. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you've peaked and you're on the downward hill. You're opening new businesses. You're still, you know, got great credibility at every level of the industry. What's the key to making that work?
When the business turned 50, we worked with a marketing agency and we produced a magazine that we called 50 Years Together. And it was the story, and it was very much about where everything that's happened in the previous 50 years and how we got to today. And it was very much about today and our relationship with our clients as well. And you can see that on our website if you wish. And but one of the agency we worked with, they did this grand day to get to know us. And they when they came back and presented, one of the words they said, "Oh, we had this word. We weren't sure if we should use it or not." And we said, "But we did." And we said, "It's that word there." And it was really obvious. And it was the word restless. And Restless can be taken as a negative way, but a positive way too. And I think that's why they grappled with it. But for us, we liked it because and another way you could say it's about evolving. There's always a need to evolve. And I think when you sit still, you rest. And, if there's always momentum in the world, and, it's a universal law. There's this momentum. So you're either trying to move forward or you're naturally moving backwards. And there's something inherent in our DNA about evolving and this restlessness. And, and that means that's not about being reckless or anything like that. But that willingness to keep changing and finding the next best thing, whatever that is, or just the newest way of being. And so that's, I think, a really inherent thing that drives the success and where we've always come from.
And I think the other thing is it's the respect for each other and being okay about stuff you've got to deal with sometimes, and facing realities and just always knowing, well, we're in this together. It's okay, good or bad, as it were. And so we've just been lucky that we've managed to make it work. I always remember somebody said to my mum and dad, how did you get your family to join? And I always remember my dad said, well, we just decided to make it attractive. And I thought that was a brilliant answer. As a parent, if you can be attractive to your own children, then that's quite a skill. So they were attractive to us. Not only were they cool, but they were attractive to us in the way they allowed us to be.
Yeah, very good.
It wasn't so controlling, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The other thing which we always say, which is my dad's teaching that and we still use it today with our values, it's to be genuine, have empathy, put yourself on other people's wavelength, and have a non-possessive warmth about it. And if you go about dealing with your business or people or friends in that way, things work. If you take one of these things away, it doesn't. It's really, really simple.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to work on because you never stop working on that because we're human beings. And sometimes we fall short of some of these things a bit. So that, I suppose, if we work together like that, if we try our best to work with our teams like that, with our clients like that, then the world can be a pretty decent place.
Yeah. Is there another generation of Millers coming along? I know you said your wife's involved in the business, Jason. Is there any children that are in the next sort of generation coming through?
Yeah. No. Well, interestingly enough, our daughter has actually just started for the first time. She's 30, working with us, helping us to run our academy. And there's a lot of background work there. It's very systems kind of driven position. But we've never pushed it onto our kids. My son's a professional rugby player down in England, definitely doesn't want to be a hairdresser. Yeah. Josh, what about your kids?
Yeah, mine are, one's just finished uni and the other one's still at uni and not looking like they want to be hairdressers, and that's really cool as well.
I can throw it back at you. You haven't made it attractive enough.
I know.
Well, the thing is, we've not pushed it to try and control it, and it's interesting. It might be interesting in the next 5 years. It might come full circle.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
because there's a lot of different possibilities for business in our world. It's huge. Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many different areas. I mean, we've gone into just manufacturing our own products in the past couple of years, which is, a really exciting part of our future, we feel. And, what's going to happen with that? Who's going to run that? So you might have children that are very much into business that don't necessarily want to be hairdressers. There's a huge amount of very creative people and successful people in our industry that don't cut hair, like Josh.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
one of the things I noticed when I was looking through your website and the magazine that you alluded to, I think it must have been that, was that you have a lot of team members who have been with you for 10, 20 plus years. What is, I mean, that's obviously a real credit to you and the culture that you guys have and that your mum and dad started and stuff. What's the key to that, to creating loyalty and creating that sort of team culture? Because again, you know, if you could bottle it, you could sell it, so to speak. You are obviously attracting good people. I mean, like every business, you lose people as well, but you've got good people, you've got good loyalty. You know, what are the sort of principles behind building that into a business?
I think it's definitely having the family feel. It's caring about people. It's treating people how you would like to be treated yourself. It's and again, going back to that always evolving. It's being attractive. It's, you know, how your salons look, the creativeness of our industry, keeping up to date and trying to be at the forefront of what you do is being attractive to people that they want to be a part of that scene. And we all, you know there's great salons all around the world that definitely do that. And it's, I suppose it's the vision that you have moving forward, business-wise and creatively, that you've got to be attractive with, that, you know, that makes this hairdressing psyche want to be a part of that. And I mean, you know, there's probably loads of other little things, but, you know.
I think one of the things that comes to my mind is, when you're asking about succession and family, is, you know, we are a family business, but there's so many people that are here that we think of as family. And we worked together such a long time. And while there's no exact, you know, we're not about to exit the business and there's no immediate succession plan, is when we think about and talk about succession, it's not so much about just our kids, it's about everyone else in the business, because there are so many people who have their own families. And actually, so it's important that we make sure the business survives, is successful for them, because it looks after so many people. So we are, you know, it's an extended family in that sense. And that sits somewhere, you know, very core into the way of how we are. And when Jason talked about values, you know, and we talk about the genuineness, the empathy and the warmth. So how we are with each other, that comes into it as well, because then that creates the environment where we care about each other. And we hear and we listen to each other, and we endeavour to do that as best we can. And then that's where we start to understand people's needs. Sometimes better than others, but at the core, it's about, you know, there's another phrase we got brought up with, and that was about having a small head and a big heart. You know, you can have a healthy ego. We've all got egos, but, you know, keep the heat, as we say in Scotland. You know, it's a small head. You know, let's keep the ego in check. You know,
is that from your dad? That one, is it? Yeah, small head and a big heart. I really like that.
Yeah, and it comes down to that. You know, really, you go, so be that way. Care about people. Make it less about yourself. And as soon as you are that way, you gain instantly. You know, hairdressers are brilliant at that.
Yeah. I might have this completely wrong, so forgive me if I have, but did I read somewhere years ago that your dad was into Buddhism?
Not a Buddhist, but into lots of different spiritual journeys.
Right, okay.
And although many people have thought he was a Buddhist, because there's a few pictures of him with the Dalai Lama, and he's met the Dalai Lama a few times. Right, okay. Friends that have organised, actually, one of our close family friends is the organiser who's brought him to Scotland 3 times now. So, but there's a lovely story. The very first time the Dalai Lama came to Scotland, in Dumfriesshire in southwest Scotland, there's a Tibetan centre and a temple, and it was the first place in the West that was set up in the 50s or 60s, and it just happened to be in Scotland. And there was always, parents always had a connection to it, because they were always interested in new ways of being and thinking, and not just being religious, but they were into spirit. And so they were open-minded to that. And when the Dalai Lama first visited Scotland in the early 80s, I think, our dad made sure he got a present given to him. We didn't get a chance to meet him at that time. And it was a wall clipper. And it wasn't an EC, it was a DC version, so he could use it around the world. Yeah. Right? So, and that's the end of that bit of the story. However, 30, 40 years later, on a trip to India with our friend Victor, family friend Victor, and they had an audience with him in Durham, Sasala, where he lives. And my dad, this came up as a story, and he said, "Was that you?" He goes, "I still have it." He says, "I'm using it tonight."
Wow, fantastic.
So there's...
Fantastic.
Yeah,
yeah.
He uses a wall clipper.
Yeah, sorry, Jason. I know you were going to say something there, and I interrupted you. That story just came to my mind. I remember reading about him somewhere, and that he had a very sort of Zen outlook on life. And the way you were just talking about the business and the longevity and the loyalty of staff and the family culture and the values you have, it all sort of, I just wondered what the connection was to that, because it seems to, emanate into the business.
Yeah, Dad's always had this sort of, somebody would say, "Has your dad got any hobbies?" And he used to read about spirituality a lot. And so he was just always intrigued. And it's been his lifelong hobby. So it rubs off a bit when you start getting into stuff like that. You meet people. And so he's just always been very, very open to different ways of, he would say, different ways of seeing and different ways of being, actually. And it's not any one religion. He's not religious, but so a lot of that kind of stuff's rubbed off, and it's so healthy, as it were.
Definitely.
So it's as loads of people in the world, people's awareness of these things is so huge now in the world with communications, and people have travelled, etc. So yeah, that's been it's always been there, and it's always been around. But again, it wasn't pushed on us. It just kind of rubbed off you gently.
Okay. You mentioned before, you dropped in, well, there's a couple of things I wanted to pick up on. I know you've just opened another salon, but you also mentioned a training academy. Talk to me about that. this is a very open-ended question here. How has training evolved in your business over the last, 20, 30 years? What are some of the changes that you've seen? And, where is that now as to how you're approaching that as a business? Because I suppose this is all tied into that whole thing about longevity and being restless. You've got to constantly evolve and change, and that's what you do. So tell us about that in that context of training and educating a team.
So when we opened a salon 10 years ago, and it had enough space for its upstairs to be an academy stroke salon space. And so we don't use it as a space where anyone can come and pay for a course. We're not doing external courses. It's more for ourselves. And also we work with L'Oreal extensively, and they use the space a lot for their courses. So there's a lot of people coming in with that for them. And we call it the academy space. And it's another one of those, well, let's start with that. Let's see where we get with that. And that's evolved over the years a bit too. And that was another, let's see where that goes, And
it's been a great space for us in relation to even having staff meetings. We can get everyone in there together. It's not often you get 110 people together, but we know when we're having meetings or seminars or team events, it's great for that. So and we can hold our own events there as well. So it's been a great space to have. But training wise, I think it's interesting. I think as somebody that teaches hairdressing, I don't think there's really, if you want to create a really truly brilliant hairdresser, there's obviously a lot to it. It's grown a lot in many ways from a theoretical point of view, the way that L'Oreal teach color keys, and there's some amazing stuff there. But when it gets down to it, for me, it's really about the craft and the graft. It's the one-to-one. It's old school craftsmanship about creating a beautiful hairdresser. And I don't think you can get away from that if you want to create a really skilled, beautiful hairdresser. I once read a book called Bounce, and it's how do you become a master? And it's 10,000 hours in a nutshell. Now, if a young trainee comes into a salon and generally works in a salon, they're doing about 2,000 hours a year. They go on the floor, and by the end of their second year, they really blossom. That's a really interesting stage. It's 10,000 hours-ish. And I do believe that. And I think it's just, you don't create amazing hairdressers quickly. I think there is so much to it. I mean, there's all the things that you teach in the way that you are, your awareness, looking after, I mean, that whole Grow book that you've done, that is just absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
But I really do think that it's, the craftsmanship and the training, you've just got to keep putting it in. There isn't a quick fix. And you've got to have the passion for it. And it's, that can be quite tiring, that as well. But we just keep putting it in and in and in. And it's the only way that we will continue to create beautiful hairdressers.
Do you lead that side of the business, Jason? Are you like the creative director for the brand?
Creative director-wise, my wife in India and I have always been the creative director from an artistic point of view. But when it comes down to training, we have a lot of wonderful people that all the hairdressers train. We all train each other, and it's ongoing. So each salon works on their team. And then we have Ian Blythe that's worked with us for a long time now, 40 years plus. He is one of our head of training, and he's got such a wealth of knowledge. And we do a lot of one-to-ones these days. And another recent thing that we've done over the past few years is that on all of our third years, they go out on what we call tour. So they spend 3 months in each salon. So because, if you think about somebody who's just left school, comes straight into our industry, it's all they know is that first place. So giving them different experiences, we found that is really grown. And that's been a really significant impact the past few years. What was telling was when we first did it, they were very nervous. We used to sometimes at the end of their 3-year training go to another salon for a week or two. And we realized there was a lot of value in that. But there was a bit of natural resistance to that change, to suddenly going, but this is where I work. This is who I'm with. This is where I go every day. Going, no, we want you to go somewhere else. So that first year, it was a real, people were digging in their heels, but actually they started to realize, actually, this is really good. I'm getting a fresh set of eyes on myself. But that was good for us because we were getting a fresh set of eyes. And starting to knock bad habits out, things that maybe got a bit missed or ingrained. And then when they move to the second salon after 3 months, it improves again and then again. And what we've discovered is people, there's more maturity. People have come out of their comfort zones more. They've realized that embracing more thinking, more things is safer and actually helps them develop and grow more. And as a non-hairdresser, witnessing the output and listening to the salon managers talk about their apprentices as well, I think it's one of the best things we've done for years, and is really, it's producing a more mature, more driven young hairdresser, or not. It's weeding out the people that are going, actually, no, you just want it too easy. It's
definitely one of the advantages of having a salon group. That because a lot of people leave a job. Sometimes they leave a job because they don't like the manager. Other times they leave a job because they're bored and they just want some change. You can offer them the change within your group is amazing. So I know you just got open another salon. I want to talk about that. So you've got 6 salons now, in total.
Well, we've actually closed one to open another. So
right, okay. So 5. There's 5.
So we're still 5, yeah.
Yeah, and are they all in Edinburgh?
They're all in Edinburgh. Yeah, 3 of them in the city centre, and 2 of them in more suburban areas, just about a mile outside the city centre.
Okay, but they're all the same brand. You own them all. They're all aimed at the same target market. They're all
Very much
the same business model. Yeah.
And people can move, although we don't move people around. Well, the stylists don't normally move around, but these trainees can. We're all in town, so that's something we can do. They can support each other when, if people are off sick, receptionists and things like that. So we're all nearish, same pricing, same systems. Everything's consistent.
What's the key to expansion? There's a lot of people you meet every day in the industry who've got one salon that's going well and they think they've got the Midas touch, and so they're going to go and open a second. And you see them 2 or 3 years later and they've gone back to one. If I had $1 for every time I heard that happened to people, I'd be a wealthy man. So I have my own ideas about it. But from your perspective of someone who's at the coalface, who have done it and you have expanded and you have got a significant business, what are the bullet points that you would say you have to do this, and this if you want to expand?
I think management training, Joshua very clearly identified a number of years ago that we need to put, if we want to grow, we need to create managers. So it helps if the leader is a great hairdresser. But you can have amazing managers that are not hairdressers as well. So management training is something that has helped us grow, and we've put time and energy into that. We've had external help with that, and to grow the person as a manager to be a real people's person, not to be able to really truly look after and to grow, as you would call it, a team, and do all the things that you teach. And in your work as well, all that stuff on top of fantastic hairdressing. And then it's always been the who. It's not just where do you want to have a new salon. Well, it's the who is going to run a new salon, because if you don't have the who, don't do it. End off. Yeah. It's like if you want to open a great restaurant, you need a fantastic chef. And you also need a front of house who's amazing as well. So you have to tick the boxes. There's the front of house, there's the team, there's the manager, a great backup of office, and the way that Joshua runs with the rest of the team in the office. There's a support mechanism there for all the systems. So because the bigger you get, the more systems have to be in place. And hairdressers are not necessarily systems people. Are we, Jason? Yeah. No. They like to be artistic. And so they need that support. Now, there are amazing hairdressers. We've got some fantastic hairdressers that are great systems people, but you need to identify what these things are so that it all works, because you don't want 4 great salons and one salon that's not doing that well. A lot of communication. Very regular meetings with all the team and the managers, so that we know we're all singing from the same song sheet, and constantly talking about how is everyone. So when we have managers meetings, which we do a lot, and we tell the rest of the team, we say, do you know what we talk about at the managers meeting? And they go, what? And you go, you. How are you? How is everyone? Because if everyone is okay, things work. And as soon as if somebody's not okay or not happy, or something else in their life is affecting their work or their life, that sometimes needs a bit of care and a bit of treatment. So huge amount of energy on that if you want to keep it going right. And if you don't do that bit, then struggle to see if you could make it work, to be quite honest.
You need to build your team. And you need to allow people the opportunity to lead and not hog the leadership. So you need to allow people to be salon managers as well, and allow them to grow and evolve. And because you can't do everything. And that was something we learned a long time ago. We had 3 salons and a great team. And then one year we opened 2 more salons. And we realized we couldn't see everything. The business had suddenly got bigger, and the old model of running it was not working anymore. And we had to allow to give away a bit more control. We instigated assistant managers into the business, and you had to delegate a bit more. as it grows. And I've asked, I know someone that owns a very large group of shoe shops in the UK, and I asked him how they do it. How do they run 100 shops? And he said, well, we've got the office, we've got regional managers, then a local manager, then a store manager. But yes, it's tiers of management. The bigger it gets, the further away from the coalface you get, but you need people, and it's all about the people. And I've often said, we're people that look after people, and we do it through hairdressing. So you focus on the people. And if they're in a good place and they're healthy and they feel their careers are being managed in the right way, and the energy feels good and right, then things are good. And if it's not, then that's what you work on. You work on making that healthy. Because when we get these things right, then they look after the clients better, and they learn better, and they progress better. And when these things happen, clients are happier, and then they pay and they come back, and that's where the business happens. So you literally don't chase the money. You look after people.
Okay. So, in the last 30, 40 years that you've been involved in the business, different generations have come through. What do you see in the generation today that are entering the workforce, Gen Z? So between, up to 24 years of age, between 8 and 24, I think it is, a Gen Z. And so obviously in a hairdressing industry, we have a lot of Gen Z. Do you notice any difference? I mean, obviously there's that they have new technology, available to them that we didn't have. How does that impact on how they learn, how you teach, what their needs and expectations are? I mean, we're going to touch on COVID after this to sort of talk about what impact that's had. But everyone I talk to these days talks about how people want more flexibility, they want more control, they want more autonomy, et cetera, et cetera. So from a business that employs well over 100 people, got a great culture, great team, and a successful business, it's not falling apart. What is it that you notice about that generation and how you have successfully accommodated them, integrated them into your business model?
Big question. There's a lot of things. I think the younger ones are obviously much more environmentally aware. I think it's something that we have to embrace more as we move forward. I think we have to be careful that there's so much that you can have so quickly from learning how to do stuff online, seeing things really quickly. You can see so much without having to go to a hair show, say, for instance. You can just go on Instagram and you can have loads of information, loads of inspiration. So that has changed a lot. But I really would say that what we really have to be careful of, and it goes back to that old school bit of graft, to create someone who is a beautiful hairdressing craftsman or woman, I think we're going to have to be careful that, because some people, we tend to want it a little bit easier, or think it's going to be a little bit easier. And there's a lot in the world that can be faster and easier, but to be that good a hairdresser and somebody that can look after people, there isn't a quick fix. And so people and salons like us that are continually training people have really got to face that if we want to keep producing that level of quality. So we've got to be really careful, because they could sometimes make us feel, well, yeah, it might be a bit easier now because things are like that in the world. But personally, I'm going to put my hand up and I'm going to say, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. You we're a similar generation. I'm older than you, but we very much came up in a generation, your dad was at the forefront of it, of hairdressing shows and the excitement and glamour and energy around all that. And I mean, you've been no stranger to being on stage with your wife, India, doing beautiful work, great photographic work, you know, amazing shows, etc. But the industry's changed a lot. And what used to motivate, I suppose this is what I'm asking, what used to motivate you and me 20, 30 years ago to get on stage and to do some hair in front of an audience and all that sort of stuff? Lots of businesses, yours included, are less active in that area now. And I'm also suggesting that a young hairdresser today is less turned on by that. I mean, yes, they are to whatever degree, but less turned on by it. So what is it that they're turned on by now that excites them to want to stay in this industry and grow within this industry, and for them to see a future in your company or whatever? I mean, obviously we can't talk about that without touching on the social media thing. So awards, again, I was incredible. You've got more awards than you can point a stick at, sort of thing, you know. Do awards have less relevance today? I mean, I often touch on this, you know, because I think today that social media has become such a big part of things that they're less interested in having a double-page spread in a magazine. They're less interested in being on stage, that there are different things that motivate them and excite them than, you know, what it was 20 years ago. And I think for us as like, you know, older hairdressers that have still a very important leadership role in the industry, I always think it's really important to try and understand what their hot buttons are, what motivates them, what excites them, you know. And so, but I don't have a salon. I'm not in the firing line with these people. And I could, before we started recording, you started talking a little bit about some of the new youngsters that you've got joining you today. Are they motivated by awards? Are they motivated by, you know, doing magazine work and doing shows, or are they more being pulled in another direction?
I think one of the interesting things, we've talked about awards a lot in the past number of years, and part of, I remember speaking with a journalist who's been involved with awards for a long time, and she said it's great when you win it, but you're maybe not sure if you want to be involved if you're not going to win it. and I thought, yeah, and it was, I thought, well, of course, but what I think what it was is in the 80s, and I've spoken to someone in a few other industries actually, and they've said like advertising industries and financial services and things, and they said, yeah, you know, like maybe in the 80s and the 90s, it really was such a
thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you'd like to connect with us, you'll find us at growmysalonbusiness.com or on Facebook and Instagram at Grow My Salon Business. And if you enjoyed tuning into our podcast, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Until next time, this is Antony Whittaker.
And there's more awards, and they're more available to more people to enter. And sometimes, you know, there's a lot of awards that absolutely the credibility is there, and there's some of them maybe a bit less so, because it all depends who goes in for them. And different businesses are at different generations, and so they mean different things to different people at different stages of their business, I think. And so I think these days a lot of it is, you know, like your local press is not going to do a double page spread on you because you won an award, whereas they used to. That it meant more then, because now it's like, well, it's part of the story when you know, if they do something on something else, and they can be a fantastic mechanism for driving a business, for validating who you are and what you're about. They absolutely have their place. But it's interesting, we have over the years watched, you know, less need from people to, I want to get involved on stage work and I want to push myself to those edges. It's nice to have, but I maybe don't want to do it all, and that's okay. You know, you've got to find different people want different things, and I think the awards is an interesting one. I think it really varies depending on what stage of an age of the business is and what its needs are and where its brand sits. But they can absolutely are great for a team. But it's interesting. I think it's interesting who you see going in for awards and who's not, and across the country and different countries as well, and where they sit. As I say, they've got a place, and we do enter awards, but not as prolifically as we used to.
I think we recently, when we've done it, we've tried to use it as a vehicle and a journey for people. It's not just about the award; it's about creating, growing yourself. Doing a photograph, finding the model. It's getting people that are willing to go through that bit of again, it goes back down to a bit of graft, a bit of really putting yourself out there. And it's lovely when you do see people doing it, because it says, as we would say to people, it's not just about winning, it's about getting yourself there, because actually you're going to gain so much more through the process. Than necessarily winning it. Because there's
people always underestimate that.
Yeah. And so I would always try and coach people on that bit. And if we put somebody forward, we want them to be, I suppose, ready to appreciate that bit. Because that's where your personal development is going to come. Then it's lovely to be able to watch somebody like that then help somebody else themselves younger, not necessarily us doing it as well. And so I think that's, if you can look at it that way, it can be really healthy.
We've gone all this time. We haven't touched on the word COVID, but I did want to find out how your business is in a sort of a post-COVID world. I'm sure you've heard different people I've spoken to, whether in this country, Australia, or the US, who have really been knocked about by COVID in terms of their team returning or not returning. How's it impacted on your business?
Well, it's the same in that we've been impacted like everyone else. We've had some people that have left because they don't want to be a hairdresser anymore, to people leaving to set up on their own, to some people that I've worked with for a long time who've just said, I just need a change. And sometimes it's really sore, but we understand. And, we're not, obviously we've not been what they needed at that moment. And that's the thing, is that we've all experienced, we've been forced into experiencing change that we didn't want. And as we come out the other side, in the world today, is we're going, oh, well, actually, we are still here, and change can be okay. And it's making everyone, all walks of life reflect on, well, what do I want now? And so I think one of the biggest learnings is that we've been forced into being more flexible in the way we run the business. And so, for example, because of distancing regulations, you couldn't have everyone in the salon at the same time. So people had to have a Saturday off, which was, sacrilegious before. You just weren't allowed to do that. This is the industry we work in. Whereas now it's like, you can have every third Saturday off because, well, you had to. And now that the restrictions are reduced, we're feeling committed to embracing a lot of these changes, and we're saying, as long as if the clients want those hours, we've got to be more open to realizing actually the clients maybe don't want to always come in when they wanted before, maybe not on a Saturday. People want to use their time differently, and that work-life balance, to make it in a very simplistic sense, where which always felt pretty good before, but actually the needs have changed. And so in order to, go back to what we said earlier on about being attractive to your family and to your team, that's part of it as well. So we've got to be open to evolving, to understanding their needs, and but keeping an eye on the business to make sure all the things, we support the business so the business can support us. It needs to be, it's a relationship. It's a two-way transaction.
Do you ever consider how your business model might evolve I mean, there are salons all over the world now that, because not just because of COVID has sort of sped it up and really shone a light on it. You know, I often talk about COVID as being an accelerator, that it's made things that would have taken 5 to 10 years to really be integrated into the way we live. It had just sandwiched it into 12 months. And we all had this sort of downtime to reassess our life, what was important to us, how we wanted to live, how we wanted to work. And as salon owners, we have to now adapt to that. And you gave a great example with Saturdays because of social distancing. And sometimes we're blind to something. It was just like, as you said, it's this industry, we all work Saturdays, etc. But you sit back and you go, well, actually, why? Just because we've always done it that way. And clients have as well. Like, why do I have to go to the salon then? Like, just because it's always been that way, why does it have to be that way? So the business model is being upended. You know, people are playing with different, ideas about, co-working spaces or whatever you want to call them. Do you ever think about different ways that your business model, could evolve, might evolve? Because that's what's hard for anybody. But when you've had a business for 56 years, it must be even harder to, to think of things like that as changing, because it's always been the way it's been, so to speak.
I think one of the, if we're talking about whether people are employed or self-employed, which is, has been growing slowly over years, and I agree has been accelerated. I think you've described it really well. It's been like the great accelerator. We employ everyone, and we've talked about that. Should you let somebody go self-employed or work somewhere else? And we interviewed someone who said, could I just work 3 days for you and still rent a chair somewhere else for 2? And it was really challenging, because it made us go, wow, that's what somebody who was in their mid-20s wanted. And it challenged our way of being to think that way. We decided it wasn't right at the time, but the idea it would affect the culture was one of the things that makes us what we are, is our culture and the way we work together. And if you change these building blocks, you're going to end up with a very different result. So I think you need to be very careful. I don't think there's any rights or wrong. You just need to be very careful about what you do.
But that's definitely becoming a thing. What you just spoke of. And so don't know what the exact answer is. I think different places, there's different needs. Different cities, different towns. The needs are different, and certainly we've not needed to go down that road. But it does feel like an increasing unfair playing field. With there's only 30% of salons in the UK pay VAT, so the value-added tax. So, our prices are 20% higher. And I reckon these are the salons, or the majority of them are the ones that are training in the industry. So, that's inputting a lot. It's giving a lot, but we're not getting to hang on to, the same amount of money that other people do. So I think it might change. It'd be interesting to see what happens in the next few years in the industry. And we just have to keep our eye on it. But certainly here in Edinburgh, in Scotland, we've been able to maintain to be employed. And a lot of other people do here too. But there's other times I've heard that are, their cultures maybe the other way. Yeah. Okay. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about your affiliation, if that's the right word, with the Teenage Cancer Trust. I know that as a salon that you do, or as a company that you support them in some shape or form. So can you tell me about that? Because I don't know a lot of the detail about it, but how does that impact on the salon? What is it you actually do?
For a long time now, it's really my dad who got into this. To support teenagers with cancer, and the idea was to have real hair wigs so that they could be looked after as best and look as great as possible. And he at the time tried to get, and did get, a number of people around the UK to join in with this and give their time freely to give something back to people. And I know I'm very aware that there are loads of hairdressers around the country and the world that do this in different forms as well. Well, Trevor Sorby's done an amazing setup there, getting so many people involved, which is absolutely brilliant. And we always did it through the Teenage Cancer Trust. And just over the past few years, they've decided to change the way that they're using their funding. And we're now doing it through and for the Little Princess Trust. So we just as a group continue to do that free of charge, and it tends to be for people, we do it free for people under the age of 24. We also obviously will have a number of clients that are needing help with wigs, so we do that as well. And it's just a nice way of giving something back to people. Often these people and families have been clients of you for years, so it's lovely to be able to support them and their families as well, because it's not just the person that's going through the treatment, it's often the family, the parents, the brothers, the sisters that are going through a lot of challenge there. And so it's nice to be able to just support that. It's something that we will continue to do, like, as I say, many salons around the world do. That's just, we're very fortunate. It's something that we can do that makes such a difference to how people feel.
Yeah, I know you were saying something about that before, Joshua, where you were saying how it's something that we as hairdressers can do, uniquely, like anyone could run a marathon to raise some money, or not anyone could run a marathon, but you know what I mean. People could write out checks or whatever, but we have a unique gift that we can, contribute to that. And I think it's not just important for us. I think our team really get into that as well, don't they?
Yeah, I like to think of it as it doesn't take a lot of resource to look after someone, whether it's, they need their wig washed and blow dried, which is very difficult for them to do at home, whereas we have that skill. It's not difficult for us to do that. It's easy in essence. It takes a bit of effort. You need to give your time, but the result, the impact is very high. And as opposed to an organised event sort of thing, is it somebody who wants to get involved in or not? But so it's interesting. There's maybe other industries that are able to do similar things. I'm sure there are, because we're, said before, we look after people. It's what we do.
Exactly.
And this is just another way we do it. But the impact, as Jason just said, on the wider family is really interesting, and that's something we've really witnessed and heard. That their emotional well-being. It's not just the person who has cancer, it's everyone else around them. Their emotional well-being is impacted too. So it's high impact.
And I bet, I've not thought of it like this before, but I bet, because it is part of your business, that it has a very interesting impact on a young hairdresser as well, who hasn't thought about hairdressing in that context. They think about it as glamour and, fun and exciting and whatever. But there's another side to it, which must sometimes creep up behind them and tap them on the shoulder and then give them a warm, fuzzy feeling that, wow, I can actually make people feel really good. Yeah. I can use this skill in a different way. I think that's a... Yeah,
if you get somebody that's just learned to blow dry and they've been part of preparing a wig for someone, that they've go, wow, I've just left school. I've been working for a year and I did that for somebody. It's quite powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, look, we need to start wrapping up. I have thoroughly enjoyed digging in like this and having a great chat with you. I've very much appreciated it. I've got a lot out of it myself, and I know the audience would have as well. So, whereabouts can people connect with you on Instagram or any other social media channels?
Well, our website is charliemiller.com, which we're very lucky to get hold of a long time ago. And our Instagram is Charlie Miller Salons. And
we also have Charlie Miller Artistic Team and Charlie Miller Hair Care.
Okay, wow.
You find all of them on Instagram, 3 different accounts. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
cool. And we didn't even get to talk about the hair care, so we'll have to do that another time.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds like a deal.
If you're listening to this podcast with Jason and Joshua Miller and have enjoyed it, then do me a favor, take a screenshot on your phone, share it to Instagram stories, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. So to wrap up, Jason and Joshua Miller, thank you so much for being on this week's episode of the Grow My Salon Business Podcast. Cheers.
Right.
Thanks.
You take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you'd like to connect with us, you'll find us at growmysalonbusiness.com or on Facebook and Instagram at Grow My Salon Business. And if you enjoyed tuning into our podcast, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Until next time, this is Antony Whittaker, wishing you continued success.